Hello and welcome to the Georgia HMAS training video on goals functionality in ClientTrack. The goals functionality in ClientTrack is a great way you can record all of those milestones you might have with a particular client you're working with. It also just gives you another level of case management that you can provide. To get to the goals functionality in the system, you just want to make sure you are on the client's workspace. Then you're going to have a menu group here called Georgia HMAS Assessments. And then under that, you're going to have two options, either goals or quick goals. We'll kind of talk about the differences between the two of these, but if you're already used to working with services, you know that there's the standard add new service screen, and then there's also the quick services that allows you to add multiple services to the same client at one time. It's a little more efficient that way, but it records a little less information or has a little less options. Same way with goals, you can kind of think of them along the same lines. So to start things off, I'm just going to click on goals. This is going to take us to the standard client goals form here. If this client had any goals that I had already recorded for them, they would show up here. There are no goals though currently for this client, so we're not seeing anything here. I'm going to go ahead and click on Add New and walk us through adding a new goal for a client. And just briefly, I guess, before I go in and actually record this, so to go into more a little bit the idea behind a goal, what we'll be doing is we're going to create a specific goal we'd like this client to achieve, and then it will allow us to go in eventually and record an outcome for that, whether they actually met that goal or didn't meet that goal. And so you'll see as we go through this that there's quite a few options, and a lot of this is going to be kind of up to you as a case manager how you use this tool. There is no requirement for you to use goals. There are no compliance reports like that you would submit to HUD that these goals would come in on, so it's not going to really interact with or interface with that at all. But again, it can just be a really good tool if you're trying to kind of monitor the success you're having with your clients. So here we've got a goal set date. This will default to today's date. Now, one thing that is important to note about this set or start date here is that it does need to fall within a active enrollment that you have already provided for your client. So that means you're not going to be able to just pull up a client record in the system that does not have some kind of an enrollment from your organization. So as an example, if I'm just going to skip down here real quick just to kind of show you this. With the date of 6/23, there are two enrollments that this client already has for my organization. We can see them listed here. If we go back to the dashboard, we'll see that both of those enrollments started 6/23/20. We also have an enrollment from this organization I'm logged in as that's already been exited on 6/1/20. So we didn't see this enrollment as part of that list. However, if I did want to record a goal and actually tie it to this enrollment here, as long as I put that goal set date as between 5/1 and 6/1, then it would show me that enrollment. So I'm going to go back to goals here and click Add New just so we can kind of see that in action. And I'm going to choose that this goal, at least when I'm starting this goal for this client, I'm going to choose that date. Now we can actually see that older enrollment that they've already exited out of list here. And the other thing we notice is those other two enrollments, well, they're not listed now, and that's because they didn't start till after 6/1/20. So again, it's just going to make sure that whatever this date here, that it falls within an active enrollment from your agency. One cool thing about goals is that while normally like with services and things like that, we're always having to record that service, of course, just within the enrollment and so we can't ever go record like a follow-up service, for example, or something like that outside of the enrollment period. What you can do with goals is I could go ahead and set this goal here starting on the exit date of this client, and then as we'll see in a moment, we'll have things like target dates and stuff that can totally be outside of your enrollment period. So you could have a goal of, within 6 months, for example, you're going to go in and follow up with this client and record if they achieve this goal or not. That can totally be done outside the enrollment period. Again, it's just this set date here is what needs to fall within the enrollment. So once we have our date set, and I'm just going to go ahead and let's go back to today's date here. Next, we're going to have goal category, and this will be something that you kind of get used to, but all of the different goals are set up under different categories. So as I choose housing and shelter, for example, I'm going to have all these goals that would be under that category, and then same way with some of these other categories here. So I'm going to go ahead and let's just choose obtain permanent supportive housing is a goal we have for this client. There's the option of adding a goal title. Now this is not going to pull into any reports or anything like that, and it's not required. You'll notice there's no asterisks here. But if for whatever reason you wanted to also give kind of a custom title to this goal, you could do so here. And then when you go pull up this goal in the future, you would of course be able to see that listed there. Next we have goal description. This is not required either, but this can be used to record any details on this goal, how you'd like this client to maybe achieve this goal or anything like that. You can kind of use this in a way like a case note that's, it is just going to be permanently tied to this particular goal here. So the only way you would get to any text here is by pulling up this goal. You can add text here if you want to now, and then later on you could, when you go to edit this goal in the future, go in and add more information. So you can kind of use it in that way if you want. It's just really up to you. This tool is completely optional, so adding goals again is not anything that you're required to do, so you're kind of at liberty to use this tool how you'd like. Because I changed that enrollment date, it's just going to now have these two enrollments. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose the enrollment I want to associate this goal with. Target date is going to be required. We can see that here. And target date is or can be very important to the way you utilize goals. We're going to see later on that there is a report you can run for your agency or for a particular project in your agency. And you can say, show me all of the target dates, for example, that have already passed on a goal, or goals with a target date that's already passed, but the goals are still open. So it would allow you to quickly find clients where you need to go in and update their goal to let the system know if they were actually able to accomplish the goal or not. So kind of I recommend thinking through what is a good target date for this particular goal. You can always update that later on. Also, if I set this goal just a few days out, for example, after the 26th, this goal is still going to be here. We're still going to be able to find it. It's not going to disappear or anything like that. You can still work with it as you would a goal that has a target date in the future that hasn't passed. Again, it's just what is for this particular goal, when would you like this client to maybe be able to accomplish this? So I'm just gonna let's just push this out to a month from now, and we'll say we want that to be our target date. By default, the status is going to be open, so that just means that this goal is open. This isn't anything that the client has accomplished yet, or that we've seen that the client is not going to accomplish. So we'll just leave that as open, and then later on we'll come in and update that once that status changes. By default, all goals you create will be marked as restrict to organization, so that's important to know. for the most part, the idea behind goals is that it's something that is very particular to your agency, to this particular enrollment, and not something that you really want other agencies being able to go in and see. However, we did add the ability where you could use this option here to restrict to MOU/info release. And what that would mean would be that as long as this client is sharing their overall information through their information release, then another agency could see this goal. So if there's ever a reason where you're kind of working with another organization with a particular client and you need them to be able to see that goal, you have that option there. So once I've set that, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and just click save, and that would save the goal. Now you're going to notice this thing down here called action steps. Now this is something that is just completely optional, but what it would allow you to do is if you have some specific steps that you know the client is going to need to take to achieve this goal of obtain permanent supportive housing, you can add them here. And for these, this is just strictly a fill in the blank type box, so you can type whatever that you want here. You can have as many steps as you want. The only thing I would note if you are adding action steps, and I have a little message right here, is that you do have to fill in the title, so you have to have something here, and then also a target date is required, or you'll get an error message. So you know, for this as well, maybe we have a target date. Maybe for this first action step, whatever it is, it's only, let's say a week out, and then for the second action step, it might be 2 weeks out with it, and we still of course have an overall goal of this 726 here. So you can kind of see how you could have different action steps here, and each of these have their own status, and so they'll by default be set to new. And then if we were to go in and say that this was completed, this would also have their own completion date. So you can kind of track the progress of these particular steps, and by default these are all marked as restrict to org as well. So now that I've done that, I am going to go ahead and just click, and actually let's just add a test title here. I'm going to go ahead and click save. And now we're taken back to the client goals screen, and here we can see our goal that we just created. So we can see it is under the open category, it has not been closed out yet. We can see the date set, we can see the target date. If we recorded any action steps, we can see that information here. So I did record those 2 action steps, and we see that there's 2 open action steps. And here we'd see if there's any past due. So you know that target date on those action steps, that's where that's going to come into play. You could quickly see if there are any that have already passed that date, and you might need to then go in and update those. And then here you have the completion date on the goal, has the client, well, also outcome, I didn't want to skip that. So the outcome and completion date. So right now these are just open, but again, if we had gone out and closed this goal out, so they either obtained this goal or they did not, then you'd have the outcome listed here, and then the completion date if they were able to complete the goal. This column over here, enrollment, can be helpful because this will show you the particular enrollment that this goal is tied to. This is also going to be helpful if there happened to be a goal created by another agency but they had shared it with everyone, then you'd be able to quickly identify that this goal here is actually not one that your organization has created. So that kind of covers the basis of just adding a goal. Next, I want to go in and look at another way we can add goals, and that's through quick goals. So I talked about on this form here, you can either just click on quick goals and go straight into it, or you can come to this screen here and either click add new, or we can also get to quick goals here. And again, the idea behind quick goals is that if you've got multiple goals you want to go record for a client, you can go do this here. You're not going to have as many fields. We'll see that in a second. But again, if you got multiple goals and you just need to kind of record the more basic elements of a goal, you can do so with this form here. So one thing it's going to ask you is it's going to make us choose an enrollment. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this project here, and this is the enrollment I already tied a goal to. The reason I'm choosing that is so you can see what happens when you choose an enrollment where there's already been a goal tied to it. So we can see here's that goal that I already recorded, but then it also lists all of the other goals that are just possibilities. So if there's multiple goals I want to record for this client, I can do so on this form really quickly. And again, it is going to, if that goal's already been recorded for this enrollment, then it's going to list that as well here. You do have the option of filtering by category just like we did on the other form, but of course, as you can see here, by default it's not going to require that category to be selected, and it's actually just going to show you all the possible goals. So this is a great way, a great screen to just come in and look at all the goals that are possibilities, and you can see the different categories that they fall under. So on this screen I can just tick the box for whatever goals I want to add for this client. We've got some of the same fields here, such as date set, target date, things like that. Same requirements are going to be, target date is going to be required. It's going to set your status as open. You notice there's no options to add like action steps or anything like that. We can go in and edit these goals individually later on and add those if we want. Again, the idea behind the quick goals though is just that we can quickly go ahead and create goals for clients. So I'm going to go ahead and just do save and close. And now we'll be taken back to the goal screen, and now we have all three of the goals. So we can see that whether we record a goal under the standard goals, add new, or if we do it under quick goals, it all ends up in the same place. So again, it's just like doing services if you are used to that functionality. So far we just created goals. Another important thing that you'll be doing is going in and kind of editing those goals so that you can then, after you follow up with a client, you can go in and record, if they were able to achieve those goals or not. You can do that one of two ways. One, you can individually go into any goal and click edit goal. It's going to give us the same form when we first created the goal, and then of course allow you to, if you need to add any more notes here, if we want to go ahead and maybe close a goal out, we can do that here. Now if I choose close, then it's going to require me to choose an outcome. So were they able to achieve this goal or not, is basically what this was getting at. Let's say they were able to accomplish this goal. Well, now it's going to ask when did they complete the goal, and so that's another required field. So let's say they recorded on the 24th. So you're starting to see now that you're going to be able to get some really good data out of this, because you can see that the goal was started for the client on the 23rd. We said we wanted by the 26th for them to accomplish it, and they actually achieved it on the 24th. So that would of course be a positive outcome for this goal. If we'd had any action steps, we could have gone in and closed those out as well with the status. Actually, let's go ahead and let's save that real quick. So we kind of closed out that goal. Now we can see the goals are separated, right? We've got our two open goals here, and then we've got our closed goal. Let's go in here so we can see there's two open action steps. If we wanted to go in here, we can go down here, and let's say they were able to go ahead and complete this action step. You can either complete it or cancel it. If you complete it, you've got the completion date. So let's go ahead and we'll just use today's date that they were able to complete that. And now let's go ahead and save. Now we can see there's only one action step that is open for this goal. So that's kind of how you can edit. Another way you can edit is the Quick Goals screen. So if we went to Quick Goals, we go ahead and choose that enrollment that we know we've got a few goals tied to. Then we'd see those listed here, and this would just give us a real easy way to go in and making changes. Let's say, actually it was the 25th they completed that, and then we wanted to go ahead and close out this, and maybe they didn't get this goal. Even though I'm choosing discontinued, we'll still have a completion date, so you can kind of think of this as what's the date you were able to kind of verify that this goal was not going to happen with this client. So we can see that's real quick, and of course you do that for as many goals as are active with under this enrollment, and then you can just do save and close, and it's going to go ahead and allow you to then just come back to the screen, and we see all those changes reflected here. As I mentioned too, even the goals that I added under Quick Goals, of course, when I go in to edit it through the standard process here, I do have the ability then to add Quick Goals to see the goal description, to see some of these other options that weren't available to me under Quick Goals. So that covers the basis of creating goals. Now we're going to get into some additional functionality that we can go in and record for a client alongside our goals. So if I go and click the action button beside a goal, we see several options here. Of course, I already talked about the edit goal option, but now I'm going to click on goal progress. So if you wanted to, you could go in here, and if you could record progress that we feel like this client has made on this particular goal. So if I wanted to say there was moderate progress, let's say I feel like it was 50% complete, I could do that and leave a comment. And if I click save, it's kind of interesting. You see a little chart here, a little graph here representing 50%. And then later on, let's say on a different day, I feel like they're at 75% now. Well, I could go in and edit this to be 75%, but then of course we kind of lose the historical records of showing how they made progress. So let's say on the 25th, I feel like they were up to 75% progress, and you just see it here. So again, like all things with goals, none of this is required. It's really just what way can goals help you to accomplish working with a client and tracking the progress that they are making. So you've got these kind of options at your disposal. I'm going to go ahead and just click cancel there to get back to our screen here. So that was goal progress. And then here we have case notes. This is just where you could go in and record a case note, but specifically tie it to this goal. So if I click add new here, I'm going to be presented with a screen we're all kind of used to using if we record case notes on a regular basis. So I'm going to go ahead and just click save here. And then we'll see that now we have a case note here. Now all the case notes that are recorded like this, they are going to be restricted to your organization, just like standard case notes are. You can see these case notes though under the standard case notes form. So when I go to my regular case notes form, I'd be able to see any of those case notes. The only difference is they are, of course, also tied to a particular goal. So when I go back to this goal and do case notes, I'll see this case note. If I choose one of these goals, we won't see any case notes. So that's kind of how that works. Then of course there's the option of deleting a goal. Normally you wouldn't ever want to use this option. If there's a goal you've recorded for a client and they didn't end up achieving that goal, that's where you would just want to, of course, go in and close that goal out and say that it was discontinued, which is kind of recording it as the client did not obtain this goal. So that's kind of how you'd want to handle that situation. Now, like all things in HMIS, there's no point in keying in data that you're not able to utilize in some way. And so normally a big way data is used, of course, is through reporting. So there's several reporting options that you have at your disposal in regards to goals. You might have already noticed there's 2 report buttons up here. So these 2 reports here are just client specific. So they are going to pull a report just on the particular client that I have pulled up here. So I'm going to start with this client goals with actions report. We're going to see a overview here of the goals that this client has. You'll be able to see the different statuses. And if I click the little plus sign here, it's going to allow me to drill down and actually see those action steps, if there are any action steps for this goal. So we know on that particular goal there, you know, I recorded those 2 action steps, and we'd be able to see those statuses as well here. So that is that report. I'm going to now click on the client goals report. It's going to look a little bit different. Still has the different statuses of these particular goals. On this one, if I click on the heading here, it's going to allow me to drill down, and this report will let you see the progress if we recorded any of those progress records for the client. So we can see here there's our 50% and our 75% were recorded. So again, both of these reports here are just client specific, and they kind of show you the data in a different way. So those are, of course, just for client level reporting. If we go over to reports, however, there are 3 reports that allow you to pull data on goals for your entire agency or for a particular project. So these will be really important, I think, to you. I'm going to click on client goals here, and this is just going to bring you to a form you're kind of used to seeing, where you have things like date ranges. Of course, if you only have access to one organization, you would just see that selected here. I'm not going to choose any of these filterings for this training, but I'm just going to go ahead and just click report so we can kind of see what this report looks like. And this is going to give you again an overview for your organization of what your all the goals that you have, what they're looking like, how many are open, how many were obtained, how many have been closed out and marked as discontinued, and so forth. And this report does have the little plus sign where you can go in and drill down, and then you're going to see all the goals for this particular project. And if you drill down more, you'd see the different goal categories. Continue to drill down, see the actual goals that are within that category. And then one more drill down, and we should get to the actual client level data here. Yeah, so if we had multiple clients, for example, that we had recorded and obtained clothing for goal under this organization or this project, then we'd see a whole list of all those clients here, and you could, of course, quickly see what it looks like as far as how many people were able to obtain that or still have an open goal. So it's a great way of kind of getting a bird's eye view of the current goal situation. You also have client goal action plans. This just presents things in a slightly different way, so you can kind of play around with this report, just kind of going and drilling down and seeing the different options that we'll show here. And then I think probably my favorite and one that can be really beneficial is this goal outcome report, because you're going to notice that it has some really cool filters here. So goal begin date, goal end date, goal target date, or still open. So what this allows you to do is you set this date range here, and then you can choose options here to say, okay, let me see all of my goals that have a target date between this period here. So that way, if we wanted to go ahead and know for, let's say next month, we wanted to know what targets do we have, coming up. So what clients do we need to go follow up with and say, hey, were you able to, accomplish this goal or not? We could quickly go in and do that here. And I forget if we set any targets for next month or not. We'll find out in a moment. Yeah, it looks like we at least got one here. And so like the other reports, this will allow you to, go in and drill down and get to the client level data there to see what clients have this goal with a target date between these two dates. We could also do some other options here, like still open. So maybe we just want to look at goals that are still open. Maybe we want to look at just the begin date within this time frame. So again, you've got some flexibility here to kind of monitor those goals. So hopefully this has been helpful, and hopefully goals will be something that will help you, be able to be a better case manager. Thanks.